Imagine two couples who retire the same year. Same $1.3 million saved. Same accounts. Same $85,000 a year they want to spend. Same everything. 12 years later, one of them has handed the IRS about $130,000 more than the other. For the exact same retirement, the exact same lifestyle, the exact same trips to see the exact same grandkids. Nothing about how they lived was different. The only thing that was different was the order they emptied their accounts. That's not a loophole. That's not some secret your neighbor's brother-in-law knows. It's a thing called withdrawal sequencing, and it's the single highest leverage decision you make every year after you stop working. And almost nobody's financial advisor actively manages it because there's no product to sell on the back of it. The advice most people get is the advice that's easiest to give. Spend your taxable money first. Let the IRA keep growing. Save the Roth for last. It sounds disciplined. For a lot of you, it's the most expensive sentence in your retirement. If you're between 60 and 73 and you've got more than $300,000 sitting in a traditional IRA or an old 401k, this is the video that decides whether that money gets spent by you or whittled down by a tax bill you could have seen coming a decade out. In the next 20 minutes, Walter's going to show you the 3 accounts every retiree pulls from and why the order matters more than the investments inside them. The one bracket you want to fill on purpose every single year. The capital gains lane that lets some of you pay zero. A real couple, Richard and Carol, and the $130,000 their two versions drift apart by. Stick around to the end, because the last section is a one-page routine you can run at the kitchen table every December. And there's a gotcha hiding in your Medicare premium that almost everybody walks straight into. Here's exactly what you walk away with. First, the 3 faucets, the 3 kinds of accounts you retire with, and why each one pours out at a completely different tax rate. Second, the default order almost everyone uses, and the precise reason it quietly backfires in your 70s. Third, the bracket fill move. How to use your low-income years on purpose instead of letting them go by. Fourth, the capital gains lane that lets some of you pay 0% on money you assumed was taxable. And fifth, the time bomb sitting in your traditional IRA right now with a fuse set for age 73. By the end, you'll see Richard and Carol's 2 retirements side by side, same money, different order, and you'll have a checklist you can keep in the same folder as your tax return. Let Walter make this concrete. Picture a kitchen sink. Every year in retirement, you have to fill that sink to a certain level. That's your spending. For Richard and Carol, it's $85,000. Now, picture 3 faucets over that sink. The first faucet is your taxable account, your regular brokerage, your savings. Money you already paid tax on. When you open that faucet, only the growth gets taxed, and often at the lower capital gains rate. Low pressure. The second faucet is your tax-deferred money, your traditional IRA, your old 401k. You never paid tax on a dollar of it. Every drop that comes out counts as ordinary income, taxed like a paycheck. High pressure. The third faucet is your Roth. You paid the tax years ago. Every drop comes out completely clean. 0 pressure, same sink, same water level. 3 faucets, 3 completely different costs to fill it. And here's the part most people get wrong. They think the goal is picking the right faucet. It isn't. The goal is managing the pressure, mixing the 3 every year so you never blast the high-pressure faucet wide open in a year the tax code is watching. Rule 1. Understand the order almost everyone defaults to, because you're probably planning to use it. The standard advice goes, spend the taxable account first. Let the traditional IRA keep growing tax-deferred as long as possible. Don't touch the Roth until the very end. On paper, it looks smart. You're letting the tax-advantaged money compound. Here's why it backfires. In your early 60s, before Social Security, before required withdrawals, you're often in the lowest tax bracket you will ever be in again. Pulling from your taxable account in those years can cost almost nothing, sometimes literally zero. It feels free. But feels free is exactly the trap. Every year you don't touch the traditional IRA, it grows. And so does the tax bill welded to it. You're not avoiding that tax, you're scheduling it. And you're scheduling it for your 70s when Social Security and forced withdrawals land on top of each other and you have the least room to move. Same accounts, same money. You just shipped the tax bill to the worst possible decade to pay it. Rule 2. There is one bracket you want to fill on purpose every single year. For a married couple in 2026, the 12% federal bracket runs up to about $100,800 of taxable income. Add the standard deduction, $32,200 for a couple and more once you're both 65. And a couple can pull roughly $130,000 out of a traditional IRA and never once touch the 22% bracket. Read that again. In a low-income year, you can move $130,000 of pre-tax money at a top rate of 12%. Leave it sitting and pull it later, stacked on Social Security, forced out by a required distribution, and that same money comes out at 24% or more. Here's a detail most retirement videos won't tell you. The jump from the 12% bracket to the 22% bracket is a cliff, not a step. There's almost nothing in between. So every dollar of traditional money you pull while you're sitting in the 12 is a dollar you bought at a discount. Every dollar you leave behind, you're financing at nearly double the rate. That's the whole game. Rule 3. This is where the faucets come together. The move isn't spend the traditional IRA first instead of last. It's smarter than that. In your low-income years, you crack the high-pressure faucet, the traditional IRA, open just enough to fill that 12% bracket to the top. If you don't need all that cash to live on, you don't waste the room. You convert the rest into your Roth. That's a Roth conversion. And all it is moving money from the high-pressure faucet to the zero-pressure one, while the tax meter is running slow. Meanwhile, you cover the rest of your spending from the taxable account, the low-pressure faucet, where the bill is small or nothing. You are deliberately draining the account that becomes a problem later, at the cheapest rate you'll ever see, and parking it somewhere the IRS can never reach again. Rule 4. And if you're sitting on a taxable brokerage account with years of gains in it, this one's for you. In 2026, a married couple with taxable income up to $98,900 pays 0% on long-term capital gains. Not 15. 0. That means in a low-income year you can sell appreciated stock, take the gain, and owe nothing in federal tax. Then turn around and buy it right back at the higher price, resetting your cost basis for free. There's a name for this, and a reason it doesn't lead the brochure. It's a free basis step-up, and it's available to far more retirees than ever use it. If you're in that gap window between leaving work and starting Social Security, you may have a few years where you can pull this lever. Most people spend those years doing nothing, letting the lowest tax years of their entire retirement slip by unused. Not weakness, not laziness. Just nobody told them the window was open. Rule 5. The reason all of this has a deadline. At 73, the IRS stops letting you decide. It's called a required minimum distribution, and starting the year you turn 73, the government forces you to pull a percentage of your traditional accounts out every year, whether you need the money or not, and tax it as ordinary income. The bigger that account has grown, the bigger the forced withdrawal. There's no opting out. This is the fuse. Every year in your 60s, you leave the traditional IRA untouched. It grows, and the distribution it eventually throws off grows right along with it. $1 million IRA at 73 forces out around $38,000 in year one, and more every year after, stacked on top of your Social Security. For a lot of you, that's the exact moment a comfortable 12% retirement quietly turns into a 22% one, permanently. The work you do in your 60s is defusing that fuse before it ever reaches 73. Quick pause. If what Walter's walking through is landing for you, if you just recognized your own accounts in any of this, hit subscribe. YouTube does not push retirement content unless viewers tell the algorithm it's worth pushing, and there are a lot of people about to open the high-pressure faucet at exactly the wrong time who'll never see this unless you do. Now, back to the math, because Richard and Carol are about to show you the whole thing in dollars. Meet Richard and Carol. Richard is 64. Carol is 62. They retired this year, and Walter wants you to write these numbers down because they matter in a minute. They've got $850,000 in traditional retirement accounts. Richard's IRA and Carol's rolled over 401k combined. $250,000 in a joint brokerage account, about half of it gains built up over the years, and $150,000 in a Roth that Carol funded over the last decade. They want to spend $85,000 a year. Neither has claimed Social Security yet. They're waiting until Richard hits 67. So right now, for the next 3 years, their taxable income is whatever they choose to make it. That's the window. Most people don't even know they're standing in it. Here's Richard and Carol, version 1. They do what almost everyone does. They live off the brokerage account because it's right there, and it barely moves the tax needle. Their first few years, their federal tax bill is close to zero. It feels like winning. Meanwhile, that $850,000 traditional account sits untouched and compounds. At a modest 5%, by the time Richard turns 73, it's grown to about $1.3 million. Then, the required distributions start. Year 1, the IRS forces out roughly $49,000 currently, on top of 2 Social Security checks now running about $55,000 combined. Suddenly, their taxable income is near 6 figures. Most of their Social Security is now taxable too. They're paying in the 22% bracket, and every year after, the forced withdrawal gets bigger. They didn't break a single rule of the standard advice. They just scheduled their tax bill for the worst decade to receive it. And if you're watching this in your early 60s right now, a big traditional balance, Social Security still a few years out, plenty of room in the low brackets you're not using, understand something. You are Richard and Carol. You're standing in the exact window they're about to waste, and the door doesn't stay open. Every year you wait, you've got one fewer cheap year to work with and a bigger account to unwind. Now here's version 2. Same couple. Same $85,000 lifestyle. Same trips, same grandkids, same everything. The only thing that changes is the order. In those gap years in their early 60s, Richard and Carol crack the traditional IRA faucet open on purpose, pulling and converting up to the top of the 12% bracket, roughly $130,000 of income a year at a top rate of 12%. They live on part of it and convert the rest into the Roth. Any shortfall they cover from the brokerage, harvesting gains in the 0% lane while their income is low. Year after year, they're draining the account that becomes a problem at the cheapest rate they will ever see, and moving it somewhere the IRS can't touch again. By the time Richard turns 73, their traditional balance isn't 1.3 million. It's closer to 500,000 because they spent a decade quietly diffusing it. The forced distribution is now around 19,000 instead of 49. Their Social Security stays mostly out of the tax line of fire. They never leave the 12% bracket. And the money they converted is sitting in the Roth, growing tax-free, available whenever they want it, with no tax and no forced withdrawal. Ever. Same accounts. Same spending. Different order. Across the rest of their retirement, version 2 hands the IRS roughly $130,000 less than version 1. That's not a trip. That's 2 or 3 trips. That's a car for a grandkid, a kitchen, a cushion for the year somebody gets sick. It was always their money. The order was the only thing that decided how much of it stayed theirs. One honest note. Those figures assume a 5% return, and today's brackets change the assumptions and the number moves. But the direction never changes. Filling the cheap bracket early always beats letting it detonate late. Always. Now, here's the part most retirement videos won't tell you. The one that catches even the people who do everything Walter just walked through. You do the smart thing. You fill the 12% bracket, you run your conversions, you're feeling good. And 2 years later, a letter shows up from Medicare saying your premium just went up. Not a little. Hundreds of dollars a year. Each. It's called IRMAA, the Income-Related Monthly Adjustment Amount, and it's a surcharge on your Medicare. Part B and Part D premiums that kicks in the moment your income crosses a line. For a married couple in 2026, that first line is $218,000. And here's the detail that ambushes people. Medicare looks back 2 years. Your premium in 2026 is set by your income in 2024. So the Roth conversion you do at 63, the smart, tax-savvy move, can quietly set your Medicare premium at 65. Your 63-year-old self is writing a check your 65-year-old self has to cash. And it's a cliff, not a ramp. $1 over the line, and you owe the full surcharge for that entire tier. Roughly $2,000 for a couple for the year. Not on the dollar that crossed. On all of it. So does that kill the strategy? No. It means the smart move has a ceiling. If you're approaching 63 and you're going to be on Medicare, you don't fill the bracket blindly. You fill it with one eye on that $218,000 line, and you stop short of it. The fix isn't to do nothing. The fix is to know the second wall exists, not just the first. Walter's doing a full video on the IRMAA trap next. But if you take one thing from this one, the tax bracket isn't the only wall. There's a quieter one behind it, and it bills you through your Medicare premium 2 years late. Here's the simple routine Walter wants you to run once a year. December's the right time before the tax year slams shut, maybe at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee. 1. Add up your fixed income for next year. Social Security, pensions, anything that shows up whether you want it to or not. 2. Decide your real spending number, honestly. If you're taking the big trip or fixing the roof, put it in. 3. Find the gap. Spending minus fixed income is what you actually need to pull from savings. 4. Look up 2 numbers and write them on the same piece of paper. The top of your 12% bracket, and, if either of you is within 2 years of Medicare, the $218,000 IRMAA line. Those are your 2 walls. 5. Fill the gap with the lowest pressure mix, enough from the traditional IRA to use up the cheap bracket, top up from the brokerage with an eye on the 0% capital gains lane, and only touch the Roth if pulling from anywhere else would push you over a bracket or over the IRMAA cliff. 6. If you've still got room in the 12% bracket and you don't need the cash, convert the difference to your Roth. Don't waste a cheap year. 7. And this is the one to remember if you forget the other 6. The order you empty your accounts matters more than the investments inside them. Once you're retired, sequencing is the highest leverage decision you make every single year. And it's the one decision no product and no advisor will make for you. Yes, it sounds like a lot. But you do it twice, and it becomes a rhythm. The same way checking your paycheck used to be. Look, this was never really about taxes. It's about who decides how your money gets spent. You, in the years you're healthy enough to enjoy it, or a tax code that forces your hand at 73. The whole reason you do the math in your 60s is so that you get to be the one making the call in your 70s. That's not optimization. That's agency. If this helped, do 3 things for Walter. Hit that like button so more people in your age range see this. Subscribe to Walter Explains Retirement because the IRMAA trap gets its own deep dive next. And you don't want to walk into that one blind. And in the comments, type the word order if you want Walter to do a follow-up on running the bracket fill in the years you're still working part-time. I'm Walter. Your money is important, but I can name. Without, you and I mein inon, Ryan, Wiren, Nightim, Neistan, Dyson, nine. Your health are priceless. Use the rules to your advantage, not theirs. I'll see you in the next.